Namaste. Welcome to another trigger proof transmission. It's been a while. It feels like a while. If I haven't been live in 2 or 3 days, I start to feel, I don't know, it's weird. It's kind of like working out for some people if you're really big into the gym. If you're big into exercise, if you're big into doing something you really love, and then you don't do it for a few days, you kind of miss it. Teaching and sharing things that I've literally just integrated with client calls that are revelations from people that I've been working with in this community, or some triggers of my own that come up that cause me to kind of go inside and gather the information from them so that I can then kind of expand my boundary of who I am, which is really what you can do when you really master this stuff. The trigger doesn't have to be something that causes you to run away. It can actually be something that opens your heart deeper. If you learn how to trigger proof yourself, really. And so a lot of this stuff, these things, this content comes from questions that you have as a viewer, listener. I'm listening. You send them to me, DMs about relationships, about nervous system health, about interpersonal trauma, about divorce, about separation, about infidelity, um, about relationship breakdowns. Like a lot of times, it's like, you know, a father or a mother who hasn't spoken to their kids in a long time and is feeling that separation trauma. And so, as a chiropractor, the reason why I'm talking about this conversation, you might be thinking, what the hell is, I ask myself this often, what the hell right do you have, Nima? And I get these little comments as well from some of the trolls and the haters, which is part of the game, right? You're a chiropractor. Why are you talking about this concept of codependency? Why are you? What gives you the right to talk about trauma bonds and all of this? Like, why do you care? Like, stay in your lane. I also get letters from the board of chiropractors saying, you know, what are you doing talking about this stuff? Keep it about back pain, neck pain. And I learned that the back pains and the neck pains and the chronic problems that patients have been coming to me for the last 20 years, mostly, if it's not a clear cut, injury, structural issue, there's an emotional injury that's been kind of suppressed or repressed or hasn't really been properly dealt with. And the human who's been injured emotionally, usually from a childhood attachment wound, usually from sexual trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, at the hands of their caregivers and family, early on family dynamics of unconsciousness, because let's face it, we are products of the environments that we're born into, and the parents and their parents and their parents and grandparents and all of that stuff. So we literally unconsciously get born into the world where the collective regulation or dysregulation of the nervous system will impact us. And the quality of those early attachments start to impact our health and well-being. It's been well documented that chronic health issues, many of the ones that patients were coming to see me for, have early attachment traumas, adverse childhood events. You have one of those, obesity, you have one, an adverse childhood event could be anything overly stimulating to a child. And I've done many posts and videos in this group, keep scrolling down, about the impacts of unresolved trauma in our bodies from childhood, from events that we don't even know about. And so patients are coming to me with all of these things. And it was 10 years ago when I started seeing the correlation just with patients, that I was like, I want to address this. So 10 years ago, I began teaching in my office. It started off in my office, and now it's worldwide. Now I have people all over the world. It started like 12 years ago, me getting out of my chiropractic lane and starting to go, guys, I just noticed a huge correlation. And the correlation is that unresolved attachment wounds fuck up our health. Pardon my language. I just got a note from somebody saying, Nima, I believe you're doing God's work, but you have a potty mouth. So I'm like, okay, I'll work on it. Especially now that I'm having a kid, it'd be a good time for me to now start reining that stuff in. So I'm making a commitment to you to work a little bit on that. I mean, sometimes it's warranted, at other times it can be a gratuitous use. I'm a work in progress. It's kind of like understanding boundaries, learning people's boundaries, and wanting to be respectful of people's boundaries, and really wanting a very important message to land. And if I'm using language that causes certain people, because of their history and because of their kind of idealisms and standards, not to hear a very important message, then I'm going to alter my public stuff on social media to make it more mentally digestible for more people without compromising the heart and soul. That's my commitment to you, okay? So I'm going to work on it. Thank you, Jessica, for this. All right. So what I discovered as this chiropractor, wanting to go deeper, this correlation between attachment wounds, I then set off on a quest to help teach people that. The problem is I was teaching it on a cognitive level. And on a cognitive level, I didn't really understand attachment, because attachment isn't a cognitive thing. And if we're talking about codependency, you're going to understand that the conversation about codependency isn't a cognitive, rational choice that you're making when you're in a codependent situation. Because rationally, we understand, we have a very good intellect of what should and shouldn't happen, right? But the problem is, when we're dealing with issues like codependency and trauma bonds, the rational mind ceases to work, and we are now governed by something deeper. And this is our work. This is our work. And the thing is, I was teaching healing those early past, stories of victimhood, stories of challenge, things that we haven't really got over. Cognitively, I was teaching the tools to shift that. But deep down inside, I was living, the way that I was living was incongruent with one that was able to have a secure attachment. The entire time I was learning and teaching, was mired in codependency. Now, when I was a child, my mother would jump into the bedroom, whatever I was doing, just walk in unannounced, and I would ask for space. And my experience growing up with my mother was that every time I presented a space boundary, I need space, please time, like that kind of thing, it was met with defensiveness, it was met with shame, with ridicule. And so what I learned at that time with my relationship with the feminine, with my mother, was that there was an emotionally volatile woman who couldn't regulate herself and was overstepping my bounds of space to make me responsible for her emotions, to fix it, to solve it, to be good, whatever. And if I couldn't do that, the experience was that love was taken away. Now, I love my mother. She's an amazing mom. She's amazing. This was all happening unconsciously. She had no idea that this is what she was doing. All she knew was my behavior was triggering her upset, her shame, her whatever. And because of her inability to regulate that, I was responsible. It was kind of dumped down on me. So my questions, my requests for space and time were not met with, with respect. So that experience, guess what I was pulled towards in my romantic relationships? I would experience a pull towards emotionally volatile women who didn't understand boundaries and were enmeshed with me, just like I had with my mother. Let me know if you can resonate with this. A trauma bond is when we repeat the same dynamics that we had as a child with our partner, with our romantic partner. What we're doing energetically, it's our physiological inner child type of embodiment trying to finally get love from the person that we never really could, that felt that we could get love from. So it's the body's replication. It's the unconscious, I say the body, which is your unconscious mind. It's your unconscious mind's attempt to replicate what was familiar, what was incomplete, yet oh so familiar. That's why you get this love at first sight pull. This is a very good telltale sign of a trauma bond. If you have like instant chemistry, fireworks, with incredible passion, chances are you are walking right into a trauma bond. If you don't believe me, look back on those freaking fireworks, love at first sight, whatever type of situation where it was heavily sexually charged, like extreme polarity, ooh, extreme ups, extreme downs. And so what happens is we unknowingly create these codependent trauma bonds. This codependency where there is a blurred line of boundaries. Codependency means that you give up yourself in order to please the other person. Codependency is basically at its root is that I'm not good where I am and I need that outside so that I can validate my existence. And I believe that we are the real pandemic that we're dealing with is codependency. And it's kind of like it's like an addiction. It's an addiction that we have to externals, to a person outside of us. And codependency could be towards like clients, could be towards money, could be towards affection for the feminine. And so what happened is I was involved and immersed in a codependent relationship the whole time I was helping people. And what would happen is it was a trauma bond. It was this constant experience of not feeling seen, me wanting my own space, her because of her trauma bond and her abandonment, her fear of abandonment, trying to block me from going away, fearful as hell of me going away, encroaching my space, me just wanting to pull away and just wanting to be seen and understood and not blamed and played victim to. And we went through this huge drama triangle dance, which is very, very indicative of a trauma bond. And I realized after things got cyclical, abusive, horrendous, I stopped and I said, all right, there's a piece here that I'm missing. I'm trying to help people heal. I'm trying to, like, I have the methods to do it. It's amazing, but me, myself, I can't create a secure attachment. I don't even know what that looks like. And the first part of dissolving that shame for me, which is what I'm sharing for you, this is your journey as well, you're called on to do this as well, is to drop the shame of creating your codependency. Because there's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to be ashamed that you turn into this frickin' psychotic individual, this person who gets triggered beyond measure, the person who acts in such wounded, what traditionally everybody talks about toxic ways. I don't believe anybody's toxic. I think we're just wounded. You're toxic, they're toxic, we're all just wounded. We're all the same. And we're acting from our unconsciousness. So that's the first step. There's a great deal of shame involved, and I want to be part of the solution that tries to dissolve the shame. Because when you understand it from a nervous system level, you realize there's nothing to be ashamed of. You are not in control in those moments. That's why you can be such a badass at work and just be a boss babe or whatever you like to call yourself, or a queen, or da da da. Whatever it is that you like to call yourself, because you're all that at work. The second you make an attachment in the relationship front, boom, all bets are off. You are now not the one in control. You are now governed by your unconscious mind. It is the one that's driving the bus for you. It's not rational. No amount of willpower will break your need to just, if somebody says, just don't worry about what people think. that's a cognitive thing. My body still is terrified, right? It's that's the work. So the first step is for you to drop the shame of it. And I'm going to give you some signs to know, as I'm going to give you these signs so that you can see what, a trauma bond is, what it looks like, so that you can recognize it. Everything I want to kind of give you a preface is that there's no shame that you need to feel about this. This is not a shaming you. This community is about making sense of the nervous system, and when you really understand it from a neurological perspective, that person, you are entangled for a very specific reason, very predictable. It's very adaptive. So it's not toxic, it's adaptive. And the good news is, if you're committed, there's a way out. If you're committed, you can untangle. It's not going to happen with a weekend workshop. It's not going to happen with some sort of guru or whatever making bold promises. No, it's you becoming your hero, you committing to a process, you committing to a journey, you being guided into your heart, you being guided back into safety in your body. And I'm going to show you what then, when you do, what then happens on the other side, what a real healthy relationship looks like. Because if you haven't had one modeled to you from growing up, then don't expect yourself to understand the skills involved in creating a secure attachment. If you haven't had one modeled after you, if you haven't seen a good example of what a secure attachment looks like, don't expect to have the skills to create one in your own life. I didn't. And in fact, I had to stop working. I stopped coaching. I stopped doing everything so that I could figure out this holy grail of human existence for me, is creating a secure attachment. All the success in the world doesn't really matter. Hey, Jamie, what's up? All the success in the world doesn't really matter until you get the skills. It's a skill. I want you to understand it's a skill. There's no finish line. It's like surfing. You're going to learn how to surf your triggers. Okay, but I want to help you understand how to know what a trauma bond looks like. All right, so I took some notes. So the first thing that I want you to look at in a trauma bond, it's one of the signs is when you have a constant focus on another person with a fear of abandonment. When you're constantly focusing on somebody else, constantly, like obsessed with something with a fear of abandonment. This could be with clients. This could be with a friend. When you have that, that's a sign of a trauma bond. Okay? Number two is a lack of boundaries, space, and clear autonomy between you and your partner or the other person. Now, boundaries is so big. I mean, it's a definition. It's a definition of who I am right here. You're coming in. The amount you talk to me speaking up for myself. It's like we have this invisible definition and context of who we are called our boundaries. But if we've never taken the time to define them, never understand why they got trampled over in the first place, learned how to communicate them without fear, shame. Well, there's fear. There's usually, it's not fun to set up a boundary knowing that the other person's going to get triggered. This happens with my clients constantly. This is why I do what I do. I'm helping primarily a lot of women, men too. Men are becoming more and more interested in, but primarily women who are emotionally, not able to regulate in that moment and then need me in that moment. And so my willingness to say, can I set a boundary, often is met with, but what are you talking about? It's like, I thought, what about everything I did for you? It's like you get it from the other side, and it's not easy. So when I say without fear, there's fear and guilt involved. In fact, in order to learn how to do this well, you got to start getting better at guilt. You got to start getting better at understanding these emotions. You got to start being able to define it in your body. You got to be able to talk about it. And the best way is to feel what's coming up and then have a community of people talking about it. But if you have a lack of boundary, space, and clear autonomy, and you're not able to communicate that when there is a transgression, it's really important to be able to kind of, when there's a rupture, to be able to repair it, because ruptures are going to happen. It's a normal part of relationships. So when you don't have boundaries, space, and clear autonomy, that's a sign of a trauma bond. The third one is when you have this kind of like emotionally addictive cycle of being abandoned and rejected, and then finally being chosen again. It's this feeling that's very familiar, being abandoned and then repair. It's like the makeup, then abandoned and then chosen. It's like this drama cycle that we actually become addicted to, because that's exactly how it used to be when you were younger. Let me know if any of this is resonating. Number 4 is the fear of the person's reaction that creates secrecy and hiding. So a lot of times people will reach out who are stuck in relationship challenges, and we'll be like, great, I'd love to chat with you and your partner. And then here's what they say: oh, no, I don't want my partner to know I'm having this conversation and doing this. And I'm like, no, then we're not a fit. I mean, this is exactly the problem. If you're not able to have a conversation about healing, people reach out all the time. I'm like, great, I'd love to chat with you and your husband. Oh no, he'll never go for it. Okay, then if you're empowered to make a choice, let's talk. No, I can't do it unless I get his permission. I'm like, okay, you're not a fit. You gotta either be empowered or be in alignment with one another. Either empowered or in alignment. You don't have to be in alignment, but if you're not in alignment, you got to be empowered. And if you're not empowered, then you have to be in alignment. I want to talk to them. But the fact is, if you have secrecy and you can't say things because of a fear of the other person's reaction, this is an insecure attachment. This is a trauma bond. And 100% common. Nothing to be ashamed of. It's just the way that it is, because you haven't yet learned the skills. This is not a shaming you type of thing. This is how I lived for frickin' all my life. All my life, until I was like, oh my God, I'm in a trauma bond. Oh my God, what is it going to take for me to heal this? I can't live like this anymore. I don't care like how much success that I get. It's nothing if I'm not able to create this. And it's not my fault I didn't create it, because I didn't have any great examples. Okay? And it's not their fault. I'm not blaming them either. It's just stop blaming and just, Nima, and stop distracting, stop rescuing other people, and start working on you. And so that, because a secure attachment, which I'm going to share a little bit later on what a secure attachment actually is my birthright. I deserve it. You deserve it. I deserve it. I deserve to have that. It's our birthright. It's everybody's birthright. We just have to make a few key shifts. And the first part is to recognize where we're at, and that in all likelihood we've been going through trauma bonds. Number 5 is, how do you know that you have a trauma bond going on? There's an intense focus on sexual connection. Why? It's all about sex. Well, on my last relationship, pretty much that's all we had. And it was intense, which was a very good distraction from the fact that there was no real intimacy. That feeling of being able to just be yourself. That feeling of not having anxiety. For me, it was like, if I leave, like, what's she gonna do? Like if I needed space badly. But if I felt like I was leaving, it was like, I don't know if I could handle and so I'm kind of emotionally responsible because of all that. And this was a replay. This was a repetition, right? And so because of that distraction and underlying anxiety, then there becomes a heavy focus on the sex. And I'm not minimizing sex. Sex is very important. It just becomes the only thing when you're in a trauma bond. It becomes, because real intimacy is not possible. If I'm in a relationship with you and I need you, like I can't live without you, then I can't be real around you. I have to put on a mask around you. I have to pretend because I'm afraid of you leaving. So that breaks my inauthenticity with you. I can't be real in that relationship. So because I can't be real in that relationship, you don't have you and I don't have intimacy. and I'm going to turn around and blame you for all of the shit you do and how you need help and all of this stuff, but I'm I'm the one in that situation. I'm the one in that situation. I'm the one that is in the situation where I'm afraid to leave. I don't have enough resources in myself to leave. I don't have enough emotional capacity. I don't have enough self-regulation. I don't have enough empowerment. I have disempowered myself because I can't leave now. I'm trapped. That is a trauma bond. And it's nothing for you to be ashamed of. It's something for us to look at if you want to have secure attachment, because I'm going to show you what's on the other side. The next one is denying or hiding harmful behaviors that might be alarming to those around you. That's a big one, because this is when things can get abusive. This is when things can get like volatile, and I know what that's like. I've been there. It becomes a trap, and you think you can't get out. The truth is you can. You can, but you can't do it alone, but you can. You must make this a priority. It's kind of like, Nima, your life is at stake. You are now called on to step up and actually heal. No more distracting. You got to face your shit. And it wasn't fun, but what you get on the other side is worth it. The next one is a strong desire to be comforted by the person who's causing you severe emotional harm. So this is a sign of a trauma bond. When you badly want the approval of that person who's like really tearing your heart out. And that is because it's familiar. This is kind of often on a disorganized attachment with a parent, which there's so much love there. There's so much love. This is the person that brings you comfort, and yet that person hurt you as well, whether you were physically abused. Definitely in my ex, this was happening at home with her mother. So it was like just so familiar. And so wherever in every relationship she would get into with a man, guess what would happen? It would get like that. And this is why we keep repeating it with similar people, because we want to be comforted by the person who hurt us, which was mom or dad. Let me know if this is resonating with you. And the last one is a chronic feeling of self-doubt, that you're going crazy, self-abandonment, self-doubt. This is one of the key components to components to trauma bonds, is self-betrayal and self-doubt. And so the theme of it all, the theme of all of it, is self-betrayal and self-doubt, self-betrayal and self-abandonment, so that you can receive validation from another because of these deep attachment wounds from childhood. And so the answer is to become trigger proof. The answer consistently is not to make the other person get help, because if they don't want it, you can't force it. I cannot tell somebody to go down their healing path. I suggest it to many. People reach out to me constantly, and then I say, okay, here's the path. And then they'll say, oh my God, but I'm so scared. Yeah, the rational mind wonders, can I do this? Is this going to actually work for me? I'm hopeless. I don't know who I am. There's a deep lack of self-trust. And so you got to learn how to regulate that. A lot of times people are waiting. I need to feel safer in order to heal this. I don't feel safe. And somebody asked earlier, what do we do about this? What do we do if we've had so much trauma where breath work and meditation are just not are too terrifying? And this is a sign where you have a lot of trauma that's stuck in your body, when you're unable to do breath work, unable to do meditation, because of a fear of all of those things that come up. In those cases, we definitely need support. Gosh, I sure as hell didn't do it alone. I did not go through that process alone. I had guides along the way and no heroes. Nobody rescued me. I had guides. I had a community. I had, somebody holding space for my tears. It's really about finding out the little part of you that needed to be in that kind of a relationship so that they can feel worthy. That little part of you needs healing. And we all have that. And that's why this work is so universal, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Baha'i, whether you're Hasidic Jew or Christian. We have all of those people in our community. We have different kind, and we have atheists too. And it's so ironic. Everybody's working together. Hey Sam, everybody's working together to kind of connect to their divinity, because trauma, separation trauma, abandonment trauma, physical trauma that we've accumulated from these attachment wounds cause our nervous systems to dysregulate. And then they cause, if we don't solve them, they cause health problems, healing crises. If we don't solve them, that's the end stage. When we don't solve them, we don't heal them, we don't work towards opening our hearts to them, the the relationships that were around become trauma bonds. They become codependent, they're trauma bonds. I In those times a secure attachment is not possible. I When you're deeply involved in a trauma bond and it's deep in your body, a healthy secure attachment will feel boring to you because you're so addicted to the chaos. Let me say that again. When you haven't really healed this, um, a secure attached relationship, which is, I'm going to explain to you what it is and what it looks like, what it feels like. It will feel totally boring to you. And you will be like, there's no excitement in it because there's no push pull and longing to be chosen. There's actual security. And I would push those types of relationships away. I was like, I just want the chaos with the push pull. Until I learned how to become trigger proof, which is number one, to regulate the nervous system. This community, we have so many tools for you to do that, and offerings. Everything that I offer is to help you engage in alignment with that. And this is one of the faster growing Facebook groups that I've been a part of. I haven't seen, it was just a couple months ago we were at like 400 people, and now we're over 2,000 almost. Why? It's because people are recognizing, especially during coronavirus time, that we require a nervous system regulation tools. We need a trigger proof toolkit, how to get into the body. I have Breathwork, an inner child meditation here that's coming up next Sunday, in a week actually. Is it in a week? Yeah, it's in a week. It's going to be badass. and It's an invitation for everyone around the world where we engage in this conversation of healing. And then I talk about how to regulate the nervous system. I give you the tools, the steps that we do with our clients in the community on a weekly basis. There are several people here that are walking the path with us. They're like, all right, I want to heal my relationships, and I want to get my nervous system in a more centered place and have access to bringing it centered when I'm kind of out of balance with it. Because that's probably the most important thing. You have a vision board, you have things in, like, the horizon of what you want to accomplish. Seldom do people say healthy nervous system in that vision board. The problem is we can't enjoy all of those things in the vision board, and I know that firsthand. When you get all of those things and then you actually aren't able to sit in your own skin or look in the mirror and say I love you to yourself. Like, this is the most important thing. Nervous system regulation. The next part is we make a list of all of our resentments, the things that you have resentment towards. No bypassing. The resentments are in your body. How do you know? Well, if I said your ex, or your mother. They enter a room and then they sit right next to you. How do you feel? Your body will bring up guilt. Your body will bring up resentment. Your body will bring up fear. Those are the things that are wise to heal those. If you want to break free from a trauma bond, stop focusing on the trauma bond and we start learning how to regulate the nervous system. That's why your partner doesn't have to be involved in this process. It'd be ideal. Unfortunately, because of trauma bonds and all the hiding and all the bullshit and the inauthenticity, it's difficult to get your partner on because there's so many lies and withholds and inauthenticities already between you. So when we're like, please help us. All right, please, Nima, help us. All right, great. Let's talk to you and your partner. Oh, I can't get them on a call. Okay, well, that's your first obstacle. You want to heal from the trauma bond. You got to be able to have that conversation because you're actually, because of codependency, we don't speak up for ourselves. We don't learn how to speak. And so this is a part of the training. It's not just kind of like watch a few modules and watch Nima perform. It's not that. It's you doing the work. You are the hero. Nima's not the hero. We just guide you back to into your body, right? And we heal those past resentments. Then you learn how to have empathic communication with your younger parts. You learn how to create a boundary around yourself. You learn how to speak up for yourself. You learn how to have uncomfortable conversations and to speak up and say, hey, this is what came up for me. And then be able to have conflict, learning the art of conflict. Really, that's what it is teaching your nervous system the art of conflict. Because what have you learned from? What was your earlier, lessons in it? It's pretty interesting, right? You start to understand why you are where you are without any guilt or shame or resentment towards your parents because they didn't have any clue either. You do. You can actually break the cycle. And then the last part is commitment and community. That's probably the most important part because it's kind of like an exercise program. How's it going to happen? You start where you're at. You don't have to feel safe. But I don't feel safe. Great. Start not feeling safe. Do it scared because that's how it goes. I'm about to have a kid. I'm not going to lie. I'll be lying if I told you that I said it. I wasn't a little concerned about the journey of becoming a dad and all the challenges that lie ahead. And because I understand what this work is about, I can actually say, I've got this. I know, I trust myself, right? And that's what we lose because of trauma. We lose connection and trust of ourselves. And so the work becomes to slowly allow the guidance of your nervous system to ease into that feeling of safety in your body, that ease into that feeling of being good by your lonesome. So I'm going to give you a little, when can you identify when you are fully healed? Good question. There is no finish line. There is no. The better question to ask is, do I have the skills to work through whatever comes up on my healing journey? Because you're going to repeat and meet these younger parts of you again and again. The question you want to ask is, do I have the tools and the community to be able to navigate with whatever comes up? That's why I call it trigger proof. There's no finish line. Oh, I'm done. No, because the work of boundaries is constantly ever expanding. Like I got into a conversation with a client when we were having issues with boundaries, with time and accessibility, and I had to kind of give her, have a conversation about what's okay, what's not okay, and this work of boundaries and expansion, it's ever evolving. Victoria. It's evolving consistently. It's never a finish line. And what happens is every level up that you go, you start a business, you have a new, you get a dog, you get work for a new place, you have a child, you have another child, you change your business. Each of these are a transitional anxiety and stepping up and leveling up that brings a new layer of old wounds up, that brings a new layer of younger parts of you that are going to require your attention. The question you want to ask is, do I have the skills? Do I have the skills and the community to meet with whatever comes up? Because there's no finish line. There's never going to be a time well where all the younger parts of Nima have now completely healed, that totally felt seen. I'm going to go through life and get triggered. That's going to reveal another part. The question is, do I have the skills to go back and self-resource? That's it. You never get there. You never, ever, ever get there. You have moments of reconnection and disconnection. That's what love is about falling out of love and back in love, out of love and back in love, to a relationship with you. This is about awareness and practice. And so, how do you know when you've got it right? Well, this was what I decided that I was going to dedicate my life to, and that's what all of the trainings. Our Breathwork is coming up soon. I'll leave the link, and the overview experiences at the end of the month. Do not miss these. And if you have any questions about this and something that I've shared, go ahead and send me a DM with, if you're actually serious about solving this, send me a DM with the story, and I would love to speak, see if you would like the opportunity, if we'd like the opportunity to have a chance to chat with you. If you're actually empowered and you're aligned with a codependency that you want to break free from and solve, you can. We have people that are doing this, but if they're aligned, they don't have to be. You don't have to be empowered. But if you're empowered to make your own choice, you don't have to be aligned. But if you're not empowered, you do have to be aligned. I want to meet both of you, ideally. And I'd like to see what your story is all about. What came up for you in this conversation? Where did you see yourself? And then where do you want to be? Because that's what the last part of this conversation is about, where you would love to be. How do I know, because several of you are now dating, and how do I know what a secure relationship is? Like, I haven't had it modeled. I've been codependent all my life. I don't know. That was the question I asked. So I did my research and I got some training. And lo and behold, here I am 2 years later with a baby on the way. And I'm just a testament. The reason why I'm talking about this is not just from a neuroscience perspective, from kind of like a training and teaching as a teacher of this stuff, of a student and facilitator of healing for the last 20 years in various forms. I'm actually the president. And I'm a client. It's like the hair club for men. I'm not only the president, I'm also a client. So what does a secure relationship feel like? Well, it's when you feel predominantly relaxed with your partner most of the time. So when Diana comes in and I see her, I check my body. My body doesn't go, oh shit. You know what I mean? There isn't that state. If that comes up and you don't feel relaxed most of the time, then you're teetering on an insecure type of relationship in towards codependency trauma bond, which is nothing for you to be ashamed of, because there's good news. You can solve this. There's an ease and flow between being close in connection and then the times that you're alone in your space and your own aloneness. So there's a flow. In other words, it's not scary or anxiety producing separating from one another, or oh my gosh, we're going to see one another again. It's just kind of like a flow. I walk into I walk into the room when I'm into the apartment, and I see Diana. I can give her a big hug. There's just this, hi baby. It's just kind of like, because that's what attachment is. I want you to look at it like cords that you and the other person are attached to. It's like an attachment, like a cord, and ruptures, separation, they're still kind of like cords. You're still tethered to one another when there's a secure attachment. And when you hit a glitch, it becomes relatively easy for you to kind of apologize, to brainstorm a win-win, or to repair any kind of misattunement or rupture or misunderstanding. That's how you know you're in a secure relationship. And it's a feeling, when you're in a secure relationship, you genuinely have the feeling that you and the other person, that you are kind of like good at heart. There's a genuine trust in the other person's intentions. God, when I was in my trauma bond, I didn't have that. We didn't really trust one another. It's so weird. It felt so uh, weird, but we knew it wasn't good. But we just kept going in that cycle, and now I understand why. There was nothing for me to be ashamed of. It's just work that I hadn't done. I hadn't found somebody to help me through it. This was one of our clients, Eve. She was in a trauma bond, and when she first started, she was like, "I don't know who I am. I feel like a jellyfish. I don't know where I am. I don't know if I'm in the right relationship or not. I don't feel inspired to be with this person." And da 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 da. So we went through this process that I'm teaching you about nervous system regulation. We cleared her past traumas. We cleared her past stories of victimhood, and then helped her connect with those younger parts of her. And then she was doing the work herself. She did it herself. But now I just saw on Facebook a picture of her with her new partner saying, the most wonderful man I've ever met in my life. And when you see them in the photos, they look like relaxed with one another. There's just kind of like, you see it. You look at pictures of couples, you can actually feel the inauthenticity within them. You can feel it. It's in their nervous system, right? When they're incongruent, it's kind of like a show that they're putting on, which I totally know about. 4 years of doing that, I could see it myself. And then when it's actually genuine, there's a different sense in it. And that was what she's now in a secure relationship. You prioritize keeping agreements with one another. Okay? So it's like, oh, I made an agreement with her. That's important. I want to hold to the agreement, which they're flexible, yet they're firm and flexible at the same time, right? Secure relationships basically feel like you're, discovering and attempting to meet the needs of your partner, and here's the key: to feel comfortable expressing your own needs and receiving their attention and care. This is a big challenge for you rescue or codependence types. Don't feel worthy of and deserving of receiving, right? That is a classic trauma bond. In a secure relationship, both parties feel, hey, what about me as well, in a fun, playful way, So a healthy relationship doesn't mean that you don't have needs. It doesn't mean that they won't meet them sometimes. It just means that you're an adult and you're able to express what your needs are. That's the hallmark of a secure relationship. If you're dating somebody, one tip that I can give you as a date is ask them to meet your needs early on. See how they respond and react. That will tell you. That will tell you early on if this is a healthy relationship. If you express your need, what you have, and then they respect it, you're now kind of like, you're now building towards a secure attachment. We totally help our clients with all of this stuff. It's really, really super duper neat, and it works. I mean, I'm a living. I am not only the president, I'm also a client. This everything that I'm telling you is I'm teaching it because I needed it most myself. Secure relationships actively protect your partner from harm. It's like it's this pull that I have. I'm walking with Diana, and for some reason we're in downtown. People just kind of like, have something to say to her constantly. She's constantly being bombarded. It's weird. People just talking to her constantly, and so people just walk up to her, and I'm like getting in the I'm like protecting her. I have this pull inside of me to protect her, and she also has that for me as well. That's a good sign. If you have that, you're in a secure relationship. What happens is you attempt to maintain safety in the relationship and trusting your partner to be a safe haven for you. So trust and safety, that's the hallmark of a secure relationship, which is boring if you're addicted to chaos. Like, oh, that person's safe. I'm not interested. That's a sign that you're pulled towards the bad boy or the bad girl. There's some healing for you to do. There's nothing wrong with you. That was, my ex was a former stripper and madam and escort. Like, all of the above. So there's nothing shameful about it. It's just you're not pulled towards safety. You're like, oh, danger. I'm going after that. That's a good sign of a trauma bond, and you can heal from that. Um, One of the classic presentations when you know you're in a secure relationship is you're able to look at your partner with kindness and caring, and then you actually look forward to spending time together. That it's not like this stressful thing, and it's not just because of them. You got to take responsibility for your part in that. Of course, they have their wounds, of course, they have their traumas. It's not for you to tell them to fix it. Let me say that again. It's not for you to tell them to fix it, because that's probably a repetition from their childhood, from a mother who constantly had them feeling like they're not enough. All right, I'm just warning you. People message me all the time. My boyfriend needs to so and so, he needs you. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't until he actually is keen on learning the skills and healing his own nervous system. That's it. Those are the only people that this will be helpful to. Not somebody forced into it against their will. It's not because I'm not the one fixing anybody. You are the one that's helping become more compassionate to those younger parts. That's all this is. And you have the ability to respect your partner's privacy and to respect the boundaries of the relationship. Oh, this is big. It was so weird to have a relationship where I have somebody who totally respects my boundaries. Like, constantly respects my boundaries, makes the respect of my boundaries her priority. I have no choice but to like give her my whole heart because I had never experienced that before. I had always been with women who just trampled over my boundaries for space. Trampled constantly. And I could sit here and play victim to them, but it was me that called that in. And this is that was my work to do. And when I did, boom, secure relationship. One of the key components is they come to you and you go to them when for celebrations, and then they come to you and you go to them when shitty times, where wounds and stuff are coming up. So that's a good sign of a secure relationship. And the final thing that I wanted to share is that it feels safe and for connection and physicality and touch, physical touch and attention and connection are safe places. And so that is what the secure relationship feels like. Does it happen overnight? No, but it comes with a commitment. And so let me know what resonates. Let me know what resonates with you, what resonated in this. Give me a hashtag replay and write down what it was. And if you feel called and you're actually curious, you're ready to override those little stories of the rational mind. Is this real? Do I need to do this? What if it was the other person? And just, make a claim for your, healthy relationship. Make a claim to heal from codependency and to fill within you what you're looking outside of you, and get help, get support. Sometimes it helps to have a ventral tether, somebody who's outside of you who is able to help see you and who's walked that path before. So let me know if this was a relevant for you, what came up, and send me a DM with your details and your story if you're willing to unpack it and heal from it. See you at the next perfect time.